Hello, thank you for joining me. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to manually create a certificate file that can be uploaded in the carrier portal to provide proof of coverage for your Wisconsin insureds. I'm going to do a review of each column and the required information, and hopefully give you some tips and tricks that might help. This template can be found on our webpage or when you log into the carrier portal. So getting started, I am just going to use fake data for the purpose of this demonstration, but it is generally helpful to have all your information handy before you start creating these. You can save them and name them whatever you'd like. Okay, so starting with column A, policy number is required always. I'm just going to put a policy number in there, and the policy form number in column B is optional, so I'm going to skip that one. And then the effective date is always required, and it must be in the year, month, day format. Expiration date in column D is also required, and that should also be in year, month, day format. A revision date is only required if you are filing a revision. For the first row here, I'm going to leave that blank. Same with termination date. That's only required if you are filing a termination. A retroactive date is required for every claims made policy. And should be in year, month, date format. Column H is the coverage code or the coverage type, and it is always required. You'll enter a 1 for claims made or a 2 for occurrence. Policy aggregate limit in column I is always required, and it must be 1 million or greater. And you will not include any decimal points or dollar signs. Column J is the policy aggregate limit. That one must be 3 million or more. Same for that. Do not include any periods or dollar signs. A license number is required for all individuals and hospitals. Column L, you'll only fill out if you are filing coverage for an entity, and you'll enter the full name, and I'll do another row like that. Okay. Column M is required for all individuals. If you're doing an entity, you'll leave that spot blank, and it must match what is on the record with DSPS. First name should also match what's on the record for their license. And capitalization should not matter. So you should be able to put this in all caps or lowercase, or it should not be font sensitive or character sensitive. The middle name is optional, so that is up to you whether you would like to include that or not. You can have the full name or an initial or blank. Suffix is not required either. Address line 1 is required. you will want this to be the primary location that they're practicing in Wisconsin, where a claim could potentially take place. Address line 2 is not required, but you can use it if you'd like to for an apartment or an attention line or something to that nature. The city is always required, the state and zip code for the street address you entered. And then column V is only required if you are entering for a entity. Column W is always required. And there's certain ISO codes that are allowed for certain different or certain provider types. I'm going to pretend like this person is a doctor. And the provider types and ISO codes are available on the instruction manual for certificate filing and carrier requirements. Okay, so that I entered a provider type and an ISO code. Both are required. The ISO codes will always be 5 digits. The provider types can be 1 to 2 digits. And then column Y is a blank column. It does need to stay there, but it is blank. So I just kind of shrink it down to make it a little easier so I'm not tempted to type in there. And then the processing type is required for all coverage you're reporting. And you'd use a 1 for a new or renewal certificate, a 2 for a revision, or a 3 to terminate a certificate. And in this first row or row 2, I'm indicating that this is I'm reporting this as a new policy. Okay, so then I'm going to repeat this process for a revision and a termination and a entity. And I'm going to go a little faster this time. Okay, so for this one, I am going to be filing a revision. So the certificate has already been reported, and everything must match what is the current record on file. You can verify this from the public site, or if you're having any difficulties, you can always contact me. Okay, so I'm pretending like this was already reported and the policy started in July and it expires next July. So in a revision file, you have to have this revision date when the revision takes place. I'm going to say August 1st in the correct way. There we go, month, day, year. I don't need that because it is a termination date. This policy was originally, the policy didn't have a retro date because it is an occurrence policy. And this information is the same. So I'm just going to copy that in. One thing to note in the license number is we do not include a dash or the classification code afterwards. So it's just usually 5, well, I guess it could be anywhere from 2 to 6 numbers, I think is pretty common. Okay, so this is the policy holder. She also had this as her work address or her practice address. And I'm changing her provider type. So originally she had this isotype, and then I'm going to change her provider type. She's going to be a part-time provider, so I'm changing it to provider type 60. Oops, I got those backwards. Provider type 60, and it's a revision, so I entered the number 2 to revise. So as of August 1st, 2022, I changed her policy to state that she went to half-time instead of full-time. Okay, and then for this one, I'm going to demonstrate a termination. Everything must match the previously reported coverage as well for a termination so that the system can find the certificate that they're trying to terminate. Okay, so because I'm not revising, I don't need that one, but I do need column F with the termination date. We're going to say that they ended their employment and their coverage with this group as of December 1st. This one had a retro date and was a claims made policy. So that needs to be reported as it was on the original policy. I'm just going to copy these over. Okay, and then here I put a 3 because we're terminating the policy as of December 1st. And he was a nurse anesthetist. So I made sure that the provider type and the ISO code matched what was originally reported. Oh, I was going to change this. And then for this one, I'm going to show you an entity real quick. I'm going to skip that. We're going to report new coverage for them. But it's got to be preferably in the future. You can file late certificates. But of course, we want to avoid that as much as possible. Okay, so I filled out all the required fields for my hospital. And then I'm going to enter, because it's a hospital, I'm going to enter a license number. All other entities do not require a hospital or do not require a license. And you will get an error message if you try to upload it. Okay. And the entity name needs to either match what is on the DFI record or on the DHS record, and it's got to match exactly. You're going to skip the last name, first name, and middle name for the entities because they do not apply. And entity's address. And that should not matter either if the alignment is slightly different. The ISO code is always required, and I missed my column V. Column V is always required for entities. And with this one, you won't include the dash. You'll just have the numbers all typed out without a dash in it for the IRS number or FEIN. I put in my hospital provider type, and I'm going to report that as a new coverage. Okay, so that is a quick demo of a new renew for a individual, a new or renew policy for a hospital, and then a termination and a revision. Hopefully this video is helpful to you. And if you do have any questions, please let me know. Thanks. Have a nice day.